Welcome to the Marketing Pulpit Show, and I am Robert Gatewood, your host. We are here every Friday at 10:30 a.m. bringing you the good of marketing gospel. We're not saving souls, we're saving businesses, saving jobs, saving our community. Now, if I happen to save a soul along the way, don't hold that against me. We'll just call that icing on the cake. Now, the mission at Marketing Pulpit Show is to build strong businesses in our community so that we can put our people to work. And we do that with business development, job creation, and service. So if you ever find yourself in a business crossroads and not sure which way to turn, just turn on the Marketing Pulpit Show because we're on a mission. You can also find the show on the major platforms, Facebook, Twitter. Got a lot going on today. Welcome to the show. And as I stated, Robert Gatewood, I am a business developer by trade. I have a company called Gatewood Marketing and Web, and you can find out more about my company by going to gatewoodmarketing.com. You can also go to Marketing Pulpit, where you can watch the show live right on the screen. You can actually see me. Not that you want to, but hey, in case you do, if you're a visual person as well as an audio person, then you can actually see the show on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. I'd like to welcome everybody to the show today. We have an exciting show today. We're still celebrating Black History Month, and we'll be doing that the rest of the month. And we are pushing back against those folks who are Black history deniers. Folks down in Florida, I don't know what their problem is down there. Try to pretend like some of this stuff didn't happen. Now, later in the show, we're going to talk about branding. We're going to talk about some surefire brand killers. What is killing your brand? And if you don't believe that branding is important, you listen to this segment coming up in the second half of the show. We're going to talk about how to kill your brand. Now, of course, you don't want to kill your brand, but I'm going to tell you some things that you may be doing that might be doing just that. And we're going to have calling in today a special guest, Miss Arisha Brown. Did you know that during the COVID lockdown that we and our kids experienced something called learning loss? That means there's been a gap, there's been a void in their learning capacity, and it has not been actually filled. That's why we have our guest coming on. She's going to call into the show today and tell us about how serious this problem is and what we can do about it. So you don't want to miss that either. Coming up later in the show, Miss Arisha Brown. Back to this Black History Month. Now, talking about branding. Now, did you know? That's why we have to talk about this attempt to whitewash Black history, because many people don't realize how horrendous some of the things were. So what I say, for everybody who wants to deny it or mitigate it, I think we should push back with telling people how horrendous it was. Like branding, for instance, branding of slaves, of human beings. It took place during this dastardly institution of slavery down in the antebellum South. It was a process of using a hot or cold iron to burn a living person, usually a slave, with the intention to scar them, to scar their skin permanently so they can be easily identified and sold off as animals. This slavery was a horrible thing. That's why the Ron DeSantis of the world and the people down in Florida who are trying to whitewash this and pretend some of this stuff didn't happen so that little kids don't feel badly. I say, tell history like it happened. Okay? Sometimes the truth hurts. Frederick Douglass talked about branding this way. He said, as a person tied to a post and his back and such other parts was branded, laid bare, the iron was then delivered red hot and applied to the quivering flesh, imprinting upon it the name of the monster who claimed him or her as a slave. Folks, we're not trying to sit here and say everybody was a slave owner or the descendants of slave owners, but we cannot deny that history happened and that it has impacted where we are today. Those who don't remember history are doomed and condemned to repeat it. We don't want to go back, and that's why the Marketing Pulpit stands tall and ready to push back on anybody who tries to deny some of these things happen. But we're also forward thinking. We don't dwell in the past. We take our lumps, we understand what happened, we pick ourselves up, and we move forward with reckless abandon to make sure we build these businesses, put our people to work. And that's what the Marketing Pulpit mission is, to build strong businesses in our community and put our people to work. What I'm going to do is bring in our special guest, Miss Arisha Brown. Very sharp young lady. She's doing some great things out here in the community. She's sharp. She's on top of things. And she is on top of this COVID learning loss. Now, when I found out about this, I had actually spoken about it before I even met Miss Brown. That tells you how the stars sometimes line up. When you have your purpose in place, you attract people who are like-minded. And so I'm proud and honored to meet her. It's going to bring onto the show here. Hold on a second. Let me get her speaker set up here. And good morning, Arisha.
Good morning, Mr. Gatewood. How are you?
I am doing just lovely. Thank you. And thank you for joining us on the Marketing Pulpit Show. I've been telling
My pleasure.
the listeners about you really all in the last year that you're going to be coming onto the show. And I'm so glad you found the time to join us this morning. I know you're a busy person. You're out here helping these kids get this information. But let's tell us quickly about yourself and your company, please.
Yes, well, I'm Arisha Brown, and I've been tutoring really all of my life. But I established my company, Good Hope Tutoring Services, in 2004. And at that time, I was teaching in the public school system. And I saw that the students needed something more, and they needed help even outside of school. So I decided to go ahead and start tutoring as a business. So I was doing both of those things for a while. And then eventually I started doing tutoring full time. And I really, really enjoy seeing the children progress when I would tutor them either individually or in small groups. And eventually I hired a team of other tutors and trained them to tutor in the Good Hope way. And then the rest is history.
Let me ask you this quick question, because I like to ask my guests this. How did you hear about Gatewood in the Marketing Pulpit?
Well, I heard, you were referred to me for marketing services from someone that I work with professionally, and she spoke so highly of you. And then I heard about your show from you.
But thank you very much. Yes, we do have a relationship with some of the people over in at the Women's Business Center over in Bowie, and they've been a great supporter and sending people our way. And we've been happy to assist people like yourself get off the ground and build these businesses in our community and put people to work and to fulfill their mission. Now, let's talk about this COVID learning loss. How big of a problem is this?
Oh, wow. It is a larger issue than people think. It is so large, in fact, that the studies show that students could lose up to $82,000 in earnings just due to COVID learning loss.
Wow, $82,000 in earnings due to COVID learning loss. Now, what are some of the other long-term impacts of this learning loss?
Well, we may see dropout rates increase, test scores declining. For instance, there was an article about Baltimore City schools where I think they had 0% for the math or something like that. So it could really cause students to just give up. And then a lot of times students that are in lower income families, they experience even deeper learning losses because they may depend on the schools for basic needs such as meals, technology access, mental health support, and so they didn't get that for a couple of years. So those deficits could cause long-term decline in their performance, which will result in lower grades, lower test scores, graduation delays, and, like I said before, a loss in earnings.
We do not need to go back any further. We're already at a disadvantage as a community. And the last thing we need right now is to go even further back by having this disadvantage and loss in earning potential. Now your company, Good Hope Tutoring, is actually on a campaign to help combat this problem. Tell us about that.
Well, so what we're doing, we're offering high impact tutoring, which will help get your child back on track and back at their grade level and maybe even a little bit above their grade level. So we focus on this issue of learning loss using different social emotional learning strategies, mentoring, and overall academic support. So that's what we do to help them. We customize a learning plan once we give a diagnostic assessment, which will point out any learning gaps that your child has in either English language arts or mathematics. And then we tailor a plan to help your child get back on track and gain their confidence and motivation back.
I am really loving this because as a business developer and somebody who's also an instructor, I teach over at the college in Prince George's Community College in the DC area. This is really near and dear to my heart. So I was glad to hear that somebody is actually picking up the mantle and running with it. And you definitely have the credentials and the experience. And I just love the way you sound so passionate about this problem. And I'm having people out here on the front line like yourself. I feel like this problem is going to meet its match. Now, let's say if somebody, and I know there are people out here in our listening audience who either some are parents themselves, or some they're maybe instructors, some may be caretakers, and they may have this problem. Some they don't even realize the problem exists. But for the ones that are aware of it, sometimes we have these problems in our community and we don't really talk about them. So if somebody's out there in the listening audience and they need to talk to somebody like you, how can they reach out to you?
Okay, there are several ways. You can either visit my website, which is goodhopetutoring.com. That's goodhopetutoring.com. Or you can call us at 301-717-8046. If we don't answer, then you will receive like a text. And within that text, it will say you can schedule a free 15-minute consult, or we will give you a call back if you leave a message.
Well, I tell you, we also have information on the go to Facebook. We have it on our Facebook on the feed for the show today. Arisha, thank you again. I feel this problem is in good hands. Thank you, and we will be in touch with you soon, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Gatewood, for reaching a community like this. I really appreciate it and having me on your show. Thanks.
Thank you. Interview with Ms. Arisha Brown of Good Hope Tutoring, and we're addressing this learning loss problem that has been caused by COVID-19 and the subsequent lockdown. Many young people in our community have been set back, and that's one of the last things we need. So go check this sister out. We have the information. If you're on Facebook, or if you're on YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Twitter, the post that we put up today about the show, you can see Miss Arisha Brown's web address on the feed. And it's also goodhopetutoring.com. And we thank her for joining us this morning. All right, let's talk about some other things. We're going to talk about in a few moments. We're going to talk about branding, how to kill your brand. you don't want to kill your brand. So we're going to tell you some things on how to prevent that, on how to get around some of these brand killers. But quickly, I want to talk about the Super Bowl that was just happened this past Sunday, and advertising. We are a big proponent on this show of advertising because of the many benefits of advertising. Sometimes we think of advertising as just this tool to go out here and get quick action, turnaround sales, but also advertising is a big branding tool as well. We're going to talk about branding in a moment. But social media made its impact during the Super Bowl probably like never before. State Farm, which is one of they have the stadium named in their honor. They went around the traditional big expensive $6 million ad this year and spent most of their campaign on TikTok this year. These are different times, ladies and gentlemen. So even the ads that were very popular on traditional mainstream TV, they took the results and the feedback and the engagement off of traditional and into places like TikTok. This campaign with the Tubi had everybody reaching for their remote control, which one of the more popular ads on during the Super Bowl. They had tremendous engagement after the show was over. It's still going on. People are still talking about, hey, I set on my remote. I mean, it's a very clever ad. So advertising as a vehicle for building your business and building your brand should not be minimized. And like I say, social media, it depends on your audience. And we have done several shows on social media and how you can use it. And so thankfully, if you have some questions about some of the ways to use social media, go back and look at some of the shows. You can go to Marketing Pulpit, just type in search social media. You can also go on YouTube and find the particular topic that you're looking for. Also, like to thank our sponsor, BLE Executive Suites. They have three locations: one in National Harbor, one in Largo, and one in College Park, which is a hub zone. And they're glad to have them bring us this show every week. You can reach out to them at 301-322-1700 or go to BLEsuites.com. As I was getting ready to come onto the show today, I actually got a call from one of my clients and said, look, who's that company you talk about on the air that have this answering service? Because I'm having a lot of sales and people calling in. I don't have the time to answer the phone. So I gave him BLE's number this morning. So you can do that also. Call him at 301-322-1700 or go to BLEsuites.com. They also have their First Friday event coming up on the first Friday of every month, where I and Miss Bernadette Clay and the rest of the BLE team is there to bring you information on the law of attraction. So Miss Bernadette Clay and her team do this every month. You can go to marketingpulpit.com and register. Let's talk about the sermon today on how to kill your brand. What you don't want to do is kill your brand, but I'm going to tell you some ways that you can kill your brand. Your brand is a pivotal part of your business success. It's part of goodwill. It's tied into your purpose. If you wonder where to find your brand or how to start your brand, it starts with your purpose. What are you on this earth to do? How do you plan to treat your customers? Okay. What is the promise you make to your customers? What is your raison d'etre? What's your company culture? So let's say you do everything right and your brand is out there. There are certain things, however, can put some dings in that brand if you're not careful. Let me tell you some of the things that you should avoid at all times, at all costs, so that your brand remains strong and positive, because you do not want a weak brand. Number one, poor customer service can kill a brand. When I came to this area initially, I heard about this company called Nordstrom's. They had a great service. They said you can wear a pair of shoes forever, take them back, and they would actually give you another pair. That, to this day, that must have been 40 years ago. And I still remember that because of the power of branding. So poor customer service, a poorly trained staff, poor communication, number one brand killer, okay? A shoddy, unprofessional presentation can put a ding in your brand. A bad logo that looks like a third grader made it. A poor website, literature. The brand has to represent you when you're not there. And if you have a very unprofessional, we call it collateral materials, website, literature, logo, it's going to hurt your brand. People are just not going to take you seriously when you're competing against some of these big companies. So you may not be a billion or $1 million company, but you at least want to look like one. Okay, so unprofessional presentation can put a ding in your brand. Bad location can hurt your brand. Now, of course, you don't have to have a office on Main Street or like over here at BLE. They have these nice glitzy offices. I mean, it's nice if you can do that, but you want people to feel like you are a legitimate company. Like at BLE, for instance, you don't have to have a private office, but they have these professional suites where you can meet people and do those presentations and do those seminars, and that will help your brand. Same thing about your online presence. You want to make sure your online presence speaks to the professional company that you are. And if you have an unprofessional location, it's going to ding your brand. Okay. Another thing that would ding your brand, when your pricing is not in line with the services that you offer. If you out here trying to be the lowest person in the world, when you're trying to present yourself as a high-end service, that is confusing. That's confusing to people, and it's going to hurt your brand. And the opposite is also true. You got shoddy service and you're out here overcharging people, that will hurt your brand. Your pricing is a strategic part of your brand, and you want to make sure that isn't in line with your product and services. Also, the products and services that you offer can hurt your brand. You cannot be a jack of all trades and try to serve everything to everybody. You can't be offering legal service in the front room and selling pig's feet out the back. You cannot do that. That will hurt your brand. Be consistent. I'm not saying don't sell legal services. I'm not saying don't sell pig feet. You can't put them at the same time and offer them to the same audience because they have different audiences. They have different hot buttons. So if you have multiple streams of income, multiple businesses, each one should have its own brand and brand identity. Okay. Other things that might hurt your brand. If you get too far on the extreme political views, gender identity, religion. If you're going to do these things, make sure that it is aligned with the audience. I'm not saying don't include religion in your marketing or your strategy, but make sure that's the audience. The audience that you're going after is also in line with that. Same thing with politics. Same thing with gender identity. I'm not saying don't do it, but if it's not aligned with the audience and the purpose, then it's going to hurt your brand. Okay, now here's one of my favorites is these bad associations. Some people, they may be good to have over to your house to watch the Super Bowl, go out and have drinks with them, go to church with them, whatever you decide to do. But sometimes associating with certain people can actually hurt your brand because some people will try to associate with you to help their own brand because you may have this squeaky clean professional image. And so some people will try to hitch their wagon to you to build their brand. I'm not mad at them for that. And I'm not even saying don't do it. I'm saying if you're going to bring people onto into your brand under your umbrella, make sure they represent you accordingly. Okay? Because if it's a vendor, if it's a partner, supplier, investors, clients, people you have all over your website, on your literature, make sure that they adhere to the same high professional standards that you do. If they do anything less than that, it's going to hurt your brand. Okay? So these are some tips that I want you to start adhering to when you start talking about your brand. Your brand is one of your most valuable assets. Okay? And to let others or your staff or your location, the products you're offering hurt your brand, then it's going to be really difficult to bring that brand back up to the standards that you set for yourself. So what we're going to do is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Let's not kill your brand so you don't have to keep repairing it. Okay? So that's our sermon for today. What we're going to do, we're going to talk about next week. We're going to continue our discussion on Black History Month. And also to the people out there, like you say, who are joining us for the first time, I'd like to welcome you and tell somebody about the Marketing Pulpit radio show. We are broadcasting from Radio One. These buds in my ear allow me to communicate with the engineers over at the studio in Silver Spring, but you can also get the show on Facebook Live. You can get it on YouTube. You can get it on Twitter. You can also get it on LinkedIn. And to everybody who's been tuning in, I see many people tuning in and leaving their comments. This Attorney Bradley Thomas, who's a regular follower of the show. Really appreciate that. And Mr. Thomas said he's going to take his pig feet. Oh, that's funny. Very funny, Mr. Attorney Bradley Thomas. Yeah, you shouldn't sell your pig feet and your legal services in the same room. Take them down the hall. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you again for tuning in to the Marketing Pulpit Show. We'll be back next week with another topic of interest. And also, we're going to be wrapping up our Black History Month. But Black History is every day, 365 days a year, 366 on leap year, and 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So, also, thank you, Gracie, for tuning in. And if you want to be successful, you got to do these 3 things. Do the right thing, do it at the right time, and you have to do it right. Enough talk. Let's get to work. By giving good service, you are nurturing and building one of your most precious stakeholders, and that's your customers and clients. But because of how you handled it, and because of the mindset and the goodwill and brand that you put out there, you start to attract, if anybody here believes in the law of attraction, you start to attract other companies of like minds to be other stakeholders, such as joint venturers, such as partners, such as vendors, such as suppliers, such as staff. If they start to see your company and your brand in a positive light, it attracts positive influences, and it's going to increase the trajectory of your company. You can make money while you sleep. It may be an oversimplification in some instances and not so much in others. When we're talking about passive income and making money while you sleep, like most things in life, all things are not created equally. There's some you can make while you totally asleep. You can sleep for a week or two and not even worry about it. Others, you might be jumping up in the middle of the night because things are happening you have to attend to. So your sleep might be interrupted. Some you got to do a little work on. Some you got to do a lot of work on. So a lot of things have been thrown into that passive income basket. But I do like that concept that when I'm laying in the bed at night and I'm making money, that it doesn't mean that I didn't do some work before I lay down. So there's varying degrees of passive income. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. They were talking about filling out some type of application. And they were like, well, if I do this, I can probably get away. You could get away with what? Well, because everybody don't do it. I'm telling you, somebody under the sound of my voice right now is thinking about taking a shortcut, maybe fudging the numbers, exaggerating your experience. Don't do it. Gatewood is telling you it's not worth it. It might take you a little longer, might take you a little more hours, might cost you a little more money to get the legitimate result. These shortcuts are going to get you. And it's because of technology and social media. You can't beat them. You can't. You can take that to the bank. Good morning, Anthony.